What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So over the weekend, there was a new interview that was posted up with Nintendo's president Shantae Furukawa talking about new games, hardware, and the chip shortage that the industry is currently facing. And with all the speculation around Nintendo and 2021 for them, I fear we would go over that here today. Also, we're going to talk about a remaster that appears to have leaked out a bit early, and I think Sonic fans are going to be pretty happy about this one. Oh, and you remember we talked about that Time Splitters game that was locked away in Homefront? Well, that unlock code was found and you can start playing it right now. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Small Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with WWE 2K 2022 because they did officially announce it over the weekend as expected at WrestleMania, and the trailer was pretty quick. You can see some of it here. They didn't really show off too much here. Some of the visuals, but I don't think anyone was expecting it to look visually bad necessarily, especially with a presentation like this where it's very quick. But like looking at this here, WWE 2K 2022, their catchphrase is, "It hits different." I'm hoping that also means it plays different, because if it's just 2K20, just less bugs and glitches, it'll be pretty average, I think disappointing to a lot of people. The bugs and the glitches took center stage because they were really funny and they went viral and all this, but I think a lot of people are just also getting bored of the game itself when it comes to the gameplay. So I'm hoping with the Reddit AMA, when they were alluding to going back and looking at things like Here Comes the Pain and No Mercy and saying, okay, why did fans like these games so much? And maybe work to revamp the overall grappling and striking and presentation, that we can come out the other side with a good wrestling game that they can then work to build on over the next, let's face 10 years, because they'll obviously do yearly releases going forward here. They took an entire year off, so I'm expecting more than just 2K20 with less bugs. I expect them to show quite a bit of this in a month or two, and then work towards an October or November release. Also, we did get the release date announced for Shantae, and we can see that here on Twitter. This from Way4, the original Shantae is almost back. Experience Shantae's original Game Boy Color adventure and all its hair-whipping, belly-dancing, shape-shifting glory when it lands in the Nintendo Switch eShop on April 22nd. So about 10 days from now, you'll be able to pick this one up on the eShop, and I believe limited run games started shipping out. At least they're putting out notifications that they were shipping the game and all of this, so it'd be pretty cool to see different unboxing videos for that one, because they had I believe the special edition, I think, too. But either way, this is really cool. This is a game that a lot of people probably missed out on. One, it's an older game. Two, it's an expensive game. On the Game Boy Color, this is one of the harder ones to find, but it's also a very good game to check out. I actually had to emulate this one back in the day because it was so difficult to find, but awesome to see this. And here's the other really cool part. MVG actually worked to make this Switch port possible, so make sure you check this one out. We'll be talking about it, I'm sure, on the Spawncast that week after it releases, because I'll be picking this one up day one. Oh, and for all of you Mass Effect fans, Mass Effect Legendary Edition has gone gold. We can see this tweet here. This from the project director, Mac Walters, saying, "Mass Effect Legendary Edition has gone gold. It's been quite a journey. Time to celebrate briefly." And I'm really looking forward to this game. It's May 14th, and the biggest reason I'm looking forward to this game is because I've been wanting to go back to Mass Effect 1 and actually go all the way back through it, but I tried, and the gameplay itself has not aged well. It's weird because I remember back when I first played it, I don't remember the gameplay being that bad when it comes to the shooting aspect and all of this. So when I started to see that they were going to do more than just, make it look better visually and upscale it, maybe new textures. No, they went back and they're trying to modernize and just make the gameplay better for Mass Effect 1. So my plan here, it's coming out in May 14th. I'm going to go through 1, 2, and 3, just back to back to back, relive the glory days of Mass Effect before Andromeda came along. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the interview between Nintendo's president Shantae Furukawa and the Japan publication Nikkei or Nikkei. It's one of those, hopefully. Watch my luck, it's neither of those pronunciations. Anyway, though, we're gonna head over here to what Mr. Furukawa had to say about the game side of things, and then we'll circle back around and talk about the hardware side of things. These are all translations from Nintendo Everything that I will link down below in the sources. As we spend more time in our homes, we're becoming increasingly spoiled for choice when it comes to entertainment. For people to choose to play our games with their limited free time, the games must be interesting. Competition is fierce, and we're not looking at the current situation lightly. We are constantly looking out for new ideas and researching what we can utilize next. In the future, we want to not only work on our staple series, like Mario and Zelda, but also work on new games and new series. And obviously, they're going to keep working on Mario and Zelda games. That's not really surprising or shocking to anyone. In fact, I think a lot of people want that anyway. They want another big Mario game like Odyssey. They want another big Zelda game like Breath of the Wild. And we are seeing Breath of the Wild 2 coming up here soonish, hopefully. And I mean, let's face it, we're going to see another big 3D Mario game, obviously. But looking at what they're saying here, I like the idea of new games, but also new franchises. What do they mean by new games? Well, really, Nintendo, I'm sure, looks at their back catalog of franchises and occasionally thinks about new ideas for them. And, well, if we see them or not, that's a whole other side of things. I think when they look at something, we'll say F-Zero as an example, they don't want to just show up with F-Zero and say, here's F-Zero. And it's still the same racing game that they look at and say, well, we already have Mario. We already have Mario Kart. Do we need another racing game? Like, that's something I'm sure Nintendo struggles with internally. So if they have a new idea for an older franchise, maybe they would go back and revisit it and bring it up as a big release for that year. Think about what they did with Metroid when they went from like 2D Metroid and then they were like, all right, let's go first person with this game. Something like that. Like if they got F-Zero, maybe they turn it into an adventure game. But I'm sure they're always looking at that and possibilities around coming up with new ideas for their older franchises. But they're also working on new IPs in general or new franchises. Like, I mean, last generation with the Wii U, obviously they came up with Splatoon and that has done really well for them. I mean, now we have a Splatoon character right next to Link and Mario in their official advertising for the Nintendo logo. That's a big deal for Splatoon and shows really how, I guess, how highly Nintendo holds that franchise now, and it's not even that old. So they come up with something like that, but then also they'll come up with games like ARMS. Like ARMS, I know people did enjoy the game, but it did not set the world on fire like Splatoon did. So I see Nintendo continuing on trying new franchises and new genres maybe. The biggest thing I would like to personally see Nintendo try is developed completely at Nintendo internally, not like handed off the Retro Studios or Next Level or something like that. Try to really take a first-person shooter style game and Nintendo it. Like bring in that Nintendo creativity and do what you did with a third-person shooter with Splatoon, where it's obviously has that Nintendo creativity wrapped around it. That's something I would love to see them try because they would step out of their comfort zone for that one. As for the hardware side of things, this is what Shantae Furukawa had to say about not only the chip shortage, but also about their approach to different systems and game console ideas. We're constantly thinking about ideas for new consoles, but many ideas simply aren't feasible because of cost or limitations in technology. We devote a lot of resources into developing technology in case any of these ideas become feasible in the future. We currently have enough semiconductors to tide us over with immediate switch production term. Demand both in Japan and abroad has been very high since the beginning of the year, so there is a possibility we might not be able to meet the demand of all retailers at some point in the future. The reason we're seeing that right now with a lot of companies, specifically in like the automotive sector, is because the planning didn't match up to what ended up happening with the pandemic and all the stay-at-home stuff. There were a lot of companies thought, okay, demand for these consumer goods, these products, will probably go down if people are at home or unemployment goes up. Any of that kind of stuff, they're like, maybe like these luxury goods won't be sought after as much, and they ended up being wrong. So a lot of times with these chips, you have to put in orders well in advance, whereas Nintendo had a forecast already in mind. They already thought about the chips they needed, and they made sure all those orders were in. That's kind of why we're seeing Nintendo right now at least being able to keep up within reason, which means if they do have a Switch revision plan for, say, the end of this year, they would have already planned out those chips a while ago and gotten that order in. But as they say, yeah, eventually it could run into issue because they'll have to put another order in, and wait a minute, everything's kind of clogged up as everyone's trying to get orders in. And yeah, we could get to a point where the Switch could see a bit of a shortage in like its 5th or 6th year, which is weird to think about, obviously, because you figure, okay, as these systems go along here, they'll be easier to make and they'll really start getting them out there and they'll get caught up. Might go the reverse here for Nintendo, and with that revision as well, they might have enough, we'll just say components and chips and all of this for the initial run, but then they go and get more, and it's like, well, we gotta wait a bit. Okay, everything's getting kind of scarce here. We gotta get in line to get these chips, and then we could have a bit of a shortage after that initial run. So a lot of things there when it comes to the semiconductor side of things. Also, it's interesting to hear Furukawa talk about really them coming up with ideas that aren't necessarily feasible now, but maybe in the future when technology catches up to Nintendo's, I'm sure, crazy and just wild R&D department, they'll revisit it. And I'm thinking about the Wii U U here? Because, I mean, really look at the Wii U, all right? It's clear they had an idea, which was the Switch, but there was no X1, for example, from NVIDIA at the time, and they came up with a device that was basically tethered, right, within reason. You couldn't walk too far away from the Wii U console itself with the tablet, but they had the idea of doing the dual screen setup, but also being able to just play off of the TV. And it wasn't until the X1 came along that everything became more feasible and probably easier to market as well, rather than try to explain that it's also a dual screen, but there's also still a console you need and all this. Remember, with the Switch, the biggest thing they marketed it with, if you go and watch some of the interviews with Reggie, for example, he kept saying, it's all right here. You take it out of the dock, it's all in your hands. There's nothing left really behind that you need to be too aware of. So it's something to think about there, because what do they have in R&D now that they're waiting for technology to catch up with? Because those Joy-Cons, for example, caught up and, oh, look, here's Ring Fit Adventure, something that probably wouldn't have been possible, say, I don't know, 5 years ago or something on the Wii U. So interesting stuff to think about there. Next up, let's talk about a remaster that appears to have leaked out early. We can head over here to Komatsu, where they say a German voiceover studio Sample has listed work on a Sonic Colors Remastered in its portfolio. It was posted on December 20th, 2020. And then there was an update after this with Komatsu saying a French retailer has listed Sonic Colors Ultimate for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch with a 2021 release window and a $34.99, $40 price point. It's unclear if the listing is a result of the sample discovery or if it was there beforehand. All right, so this is pretty cool because Sonic Colors has been left on the Wii this whole time. It's on the Wii and the DS in 2010, and it's actually, I think, one of the higher rated 3D Sonic games, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's like behind maybe Sonic Adventure 2. It was for 3D Sonic games, having a high 70s Metacritic score, you might as well get a perfect score then. I mean, we just saw Sonic 4's come out mid to low 50s. It's 3D Sonic games have been having a hard time, and Sega themselves said that the pandemic, remote work really set them back. I feel like this is a game that probably was designed to come out last year when they were hyping up like the year of Sonic and all of this. And the good news here is I think this is something we can look forward to later this year, as it's being shown here, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and would be backwards compatible, obviously, for the PS5 and the Series X and the Series S. But that's exciting stuff because I did like Sonic Colors on the Wii, but like if you take a game like that looked really good on the Wii at the time, it was 480p and all of that, you move it up, and I'm sure they go to 4K 60 with the newer consoles, and like the Switch gets like 1080p 60. It's a game that I think will move to the newer generation very well with the visual style and the movement of the game. So exciting stuff there. I guess we'll just kind of hang out and wait for Sega to tell us when we can pre-order it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that Time Splitters game that was locked away in Homefront. And it was kind of sad to hear about this because it did sound like we weren't going to be getting that unlock code. There were just a couple of levels that were playable, but the whole thing was there in Homefront. Well, didn't take the internet too long to come up with that unlock code. And we can see this from Lance McDonald on Twitter saying, the codes to unlock the full version, all content for Time Splitters 2 within Homefront Revolution have just been discovered. Here you go, everyone. There is a screenshot there of all of the different codes you would need: story, arcade, challenge, all of that. I will leave this tweet linked down below in the sources so you can go to it and check out the different codes. And the interesting thing about this, it appears to have just been dropped on Twitter from Spencer, where they just say, you mean this code? This was in response to Matt Phillips, who had talked about the unlock code being lost to time. And, well, people took those codes, went over to Homefront, and here you go. This is Andrew, for example, on YouTube, playing Time Splitters 2 on PC with Homefront The Revolution. And I assume now Homefront all of a sudden spikes in terms of sales on eBay. And it was, from what people were saying, on Humble Bundle not too long ago. I think like a week or so ago for $4 or $5. So this game should be pretty cheap to find in general if you just want to run through and check out Time Splitters 2. And in fact, you may already have it and just never even played it, since I do remember it coming in quite a few different bundles, even outside of Humble Bundle. So really cool stuff here. I'm curious now if the unlock code is out there, if people who will maybe go through the code a bit more and modify and alter the game, if they'll work to just like extract this, I'm not sure how all of that'll work, like pull the whole game out or do different things to it. Maybe get to the point where they modify it and add the different arcade cabinets into one room for Homefront. As was mentioned there, you can then play multiplayer locally, like on the machine. So really, really cool stuff here. Go try it. See if you can get into the arcade machine or using this code to get into Time Splitters in Homefront. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, are you concerned about Sony's current direction after the Bloomberg report? 78% of you said yes, I don't agree with their current strategy, and 22% of you said no, Sony is going to release some incredible games this generation. I agree with that. I think Sony is going to put out some awesome games. Like when we start seeing things with Horizon, God of War, we see Gran Turismo, I'm sure that game's going to look amazing. And even when we get to Ratchet and Clank and that comes out, like I am expecting some really good releases out of Sony's studios and PlayStation Studios now, I guess what we will be calling them. But I do get a bit worried about the really feeling more like a formula that they follow, right? The third person over the shoulder cinematic style games. And if that's just something we just, okay, it's Sony, that's what we're expecting. I'm a bit concerned that we get away from the creative Sony and some of the weird stuff they used to release back in the day, and we get closer to what Ubisoft fell into, which is, climbing the towers, unlocking parts of the map, all of this. It basically felt like every Ubisoft game was the same game. So, I mean, we'll see what Sony comes up with as we go along here. At least we know, hey, when Sony's coming out with a game, it's probably going to be super high quality and have a pretty big budget. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Dojimon saying, if I was making a game and everyone thought it was Kojima, I would take that as a compliment. I thought about this a little bit more with that Abandoned game. I would have said nothing. In fact, I would have gotten more mysterious if people are speculating that's a Kojima game. I don't think I'd ever mention Kojima's name or even play into it necessarily with like comments or any of that, but I would just be more and more cryptic and mysterious and let people assume that that's the case, and then we get closer and closer to release, and then they probably just buy it because they think it is a Kojima game still, and they load it up, and it's like, you just got Kojima'd or something there. And if I did all that and I bought it for that, I'd say, wow, I mean, they kind of earned their money. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's the interview with Nintendo President Shantae Furukawa, some of the talk about the different games and trying new things with hardware that technology isn't really ready for. What ideas do you think they have in R&D right now? And what, I guess, genre or franchise do you want to see Nintendo take a shot at next? And then also, what do you think about the leak for Sonic Colors Remaster, Sonic Colors Ultimate? Are you happy to hear about that? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.